right, everyone, we are back. Come on, check in, everybody. Let's go. Muhammad, that's 100 bucks for 4 chapters. All right. All right, guys, let's move forwards. Some people are still not here. All right, chapter 27. All right, we're going over New Jersey agency and business practices. Now, again, reviews, right? So I'm going to go rush right through it, just point out a few things. Most of the stuff you already know. For instance, agency relationships, right? You guys already know what this is. What types of agency relationships can we get into? Disclosed dual agent, perfect. There's 3 more. Disclosed dual agent. Gilbert, that looks good, man. You're starving. Disclosed dual agent, seller's agent, yes. Buyer's agent, and number 4, transaction broker. Perfect. It's like one of those. So, buyer's agent, you guys got it. Buyer's agency, seller's agency, right? This is where you work individually with either the buyer or the seller, and you commit to the buyer or the seller, right? Dual agency, very important, disclosed. It has to be disclosed. So you have to have written consent to representing both sides. Very, very important. Written consent to representing both sides. Okay. And then we have transaction broker. Transaction broker is not an agency. Because what is agency? Agency is the relationship between the employer and the employee. Who hired you for the service? So the seller hire you, he's your employer, right? You're the employee, correct? For that service. So if there's no agency agreement, then you don't have a client, you have customers. At this point, you do not owe either party the duty of putting his or her interests ahead of the other party's interests. So you do not represent either party. Transaction broker, you do not represent either party. You guys remember that? Good so far? Great, awesome. Keep on moving, right? Now, agency disclosure. You guys know by now, clearly, right, that you must notify the seller, hey, I I represent you and this is what you can expect from me, right? Buyer, hey, I represent you and this is what you can expect from me. Hey, buyer and seller, I represent both of you and this is what you can expect from me. Or, I don't represent either one of you, so don't expect anything other than these things, right? So, how do you explain this to people? You're supposed to know how to do it verbally, right? At least the basics. But in New Jersey, we have something called CIS. CIS. It's the Consumer Information Statement, right? The CIS has a summary of all types of business relationships, and this applies to 1 to 4 family residences. So if you're talking about residential property, you must always provide the CIS, a document that must be given, required to be provided at the first contact with a customer and prior to any discussion of the customer's financial matters or motivation for buying or selling. So somebody shows up at your office or calls you up, or you're at a cafe and you strike a conversation and they say, oh, you're a realtor. I'd like to buy a house. Okay? The moment the person opens their mouth to say, I'd like to buy or would like to sell, at that moment, that's your first contact related to a potential transaction. You must immediately disclose agency relationships. Okay? So when must you disclose? This is a guaranteed state exam question or your money back. When must you disclose? First contact before anything. Now, guys, I do challenge you. I challenge you to call other agencies, right? Call realtors and start asking them, hey, I want to buy or I want to sell. Can you help me? I challenge you to try to find one that will disclose this stuff up front before saying, hey, you want 2 family, 3, 4? What are you looking for? 400,000? 3 bedroom, 2 bath, right? They start asking you questions right away instead of, oh, hold your horses. State of New Jersey requires me to disclose certain information. Is that okay? That's what should be done. Okay? Do we do it? Most people don't. That's why you must provide it at least at the follow-up, as soon as you sit down with them. Okay? Verbally, guys, advise at least the basics. Listen, anything you say, this is why I try to get people off the phone as soon as possible. As soon as you tell me how I want to buy or I want to sell, I try to get you on the phone. Great, when can we get together? Simple. Why? Because I know I have to disclose this stuff. And over the phone, people are going to hang up right away. It's too much to disclose. Right? So hey, to protect you, right? To protect you, I have to disclose certain stuff. Because I could represent you as a seller's agent, or I could represent you as represent the transaction only, right? Or maybe if it's a listing that I have and you're trying to buy, I might represent both of you. So there's a few things I need to disclose to you. I like to sit down to give you all the options. Get off the phone. You understand? Schedule that appointment right away and disclose. This is required. And then you put it in writing. Failure to do so can result in license suspension or revocation. Suspension or revocation. Okay? Why? Because people are entitled to know who you represent. They're entitled to know what they can expect from you. Get familiar with it. You can get a copy of the CIS right here, or just Google CIS, New Jersey CIS, and it should pop up. Okay? You guys already know this. An agency is the legal relationship created when the broker and the client agree to have the broker represent the client when dealing with third parties. The broker is the agent and the client is always the principal. You guys already know that, right? And you also know from chapter 11, right, agency, you also know that whoever pays the commission is not the client. The client and the commission is all determined by contractual agreements. For instance, you could represent the buyer, but the seller agreed to pay commission. Right? So just because the seller is going to pay the commission, you're going to say, you're the one that hired me, buyer, but my first interest is the one that pays me. No. Okay? Your first interest is to, and priority is the person that hired you. Very, very important. Commission does not determine agency. All right? You guys already know this. Next page, disclosure duties. You also know this part. Yes, sorry.
Buyer hired you.
Mhm. Mhm. Because, okay, so a buyer usually traditionally does not pay you because usually traditionally the seller already agreed to pay whoever brings a buyer.
Right.
That's it. So if I represent you in buying a house, I know I'm getting paid by the seller, which is another thing we have to disclose. Like, it's no cost to you, right? So I'm not working for free. I'm getting paid. It's no cost to you, the buyer, but I'm getting paid by the seller in the listing. If the listing does not have compensation to whoever brings a buyer, then you would be responsible for that commission. But most listings, when you get the listing, you get the commission right away. All right, so that's it. I don't work for free. It's just, and I have to disclose that I'm getting paid by the other party. You got it? You were concerned you're going to work for free?
No, I'm covered. It's just about if you're being hired, you should be paying some.
Not always.
Am I supposed to hire you and just hire without having to pay anything?
But that's what I'm saying, because in this case, the payment comes from another party. That's why this part was important right here. That says the agency is by contractual agreement and not by who pays the commission. Okay, so you are paying me by allowing me to represent you and getting paid by the seller. I don't know what other way to say it. I am getting paid. I'm not working for free. There's just no cost to you. Okay, which is something guys are going to learn later on. You cannot say it's free for you. No, it's no cost. The play of words is very, very important, because if you say it's free for you, it is costing you, because since you're paying $400,000, my commission comes out of the $400,000. So somehow it comes out of your pocket, right? So the play of words is going to be very important here. It's not free at all. Yet some people advertise as free. All right. Disclosure duties. Guys, you also know this one by heart. You guys know that anything and everything that could affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed, right? If there's mold, if there's a leak, if there's an underground oil tank that you know about, you have to tell me. If there's radon, if there's what do you call it, asbestos, anything that you know about it must be disclosed, even if the property is being sold as is. Remember you asked that? Okay, you guys know that. Those are called material facts. Okay, this part we just covered in the previous chapter. Material facts right here. Material facts. This is very, very important. I just said it. So anything that could affect the transaction must be disclosed. And these things are water leakage in the basement, mold inside the living structure, cracks in the structure foundation. Now, what about things that you don't have to disclose or shouldn't disclose at all? Noisy neighbors, as an example. How does that affect the value of the structure? Because what we're selling is the structure. Okay? How does noisy neighbors affect the value of this? And maybe you like noisy neighbors. Maybe you go there and make a party with them, right? So these things don't affect the transaction itself or the structure that you're buying. Okay, 500,000 is 500,000, with or without neighbors. Okay, you're the one that determines that value. The buyers are the ones that determine that value. Right? Is this a neighborhood that I like to be in? Right? You determine that value. My part as a salesperson is to figure out if the property is in good shape or not, and is it worth the 500,000? That's my part. Okay? So we do not have to disclose social conditions or psychological impairments. These situations do not, and we covered this in previous chapters, do not affect the physical condition of the property. Okay? Very, very important. Remember that. We must disclose everything that affects the transaction. Structural issues, title issues, the buyer's ability to buy or not. Those are material facts that affect the transaction. Okay? I already told you that the sellers are required, right, as is, they are required to disclose latent defects to their agents. What are latent defects? Hidden, meaning stuff we cannot see right away. The seller must disclose anything that they know about the property. Okay? Failure to do so could result in the buyer rescinding the sales contract and or the seller becoming financially liable for damages caused by the defect. All right? So, if the seller knows about something, we gave the examples of a sewer backup, for instance. We talked about leaks in the roof, for instance. If the seller knows about this stuff, right, because it doesn't happen overnight, it's a buildup overnight, right? If the seller knows about the stuff and does not disclose, or tells the agent, hey, don't tell anyone, I just painted this. Remember the fresh paint we talked yesterday? I just painted this. Nobody knows there's mold. Right? Don't tell anybody. If the agent gets involved in that, then the agent's also liable for those actions. The seller could be financially liable for fixing the problem, but the agent could be liable as well for not disclosing the problem. Okay? I'm sure you guys remember the clue report. The disclosure to the seller is what I told you guys right here. If the buyer cannot buy, so next page, if the buyer cannot buy, the seller must be notified of this issue. If the buyer cannot buy, the seller must be notified of this issue. Meaning the buyer lost his or her job. The buyer's DTI, debt to income ratio, increased, therefore they're no longer capable of obtaining a mortgage. You have to let the seller know right away. True stories. This happened. This happened to actually a family member recently, where the buyer, they're 2 weeks away from closing. The buyer, and they figure out, no, 1 week away, I'm sorry, from closing, and they figure out that the buyer had lost their job 2 months before. So we're in the transaction for like, I think it was 3.5 months, something like that. The buyer lost the job, could not get another job, but the seller was never notified of this change, right? I don't know if you guys know about this, but it could take six months to a year on regular conditions for you to get another job, equivalent job. It could be 6 months to a year. That's why we always try to have 6 months to a year of reserve in case we lose our jobs, right? And that's under normal conditions. Over the past year, we don't have the 6 months to a year anymore. It's probably going to be 2 to 3 years before you can get your job back or something similar, equivalent to that, right? So, and a lot of people are now willing to, okay, I cannot get my job, so let me go get something else, right? If it's not in my field, I'm not going to do it, right? A lot of people don't want to. So you got to be ready for that. If you lose your job, most likely you will not qualify for the mortgage because it's tough to get another job right away. If you change jobs, you might not qualify for a mortgage right away, especially if you're changing professions. Then the lender usually wants 6 months to a year of experience in that profession in order to qualify. You got it? So there's a lot of things that must be disclosed. Another thing that must be disclosed is all offers. All offers. It must be disclosed immediately, which they say it's 24 hours at least. So within 24 hours, you must present all offers. It's not a, that offer's too low, I'm not going to present it. Okay? Maybe the seller wants the offer that's too low. You might come with other conditions that will help the seller. So all offers are offers, period. Okay? All right, you guys know all this, disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. Offsite conditions. Okay. In 1995, a developer was sued because of something that's outside of the development. Right? Question. If it's off-site, outside of your property, so not within the property lines, does that affect your property? Should it even be a consideration if it's off-site? Say it louder. Can be. You said sure. Develop on that. Weeping depends. Okay, great.
I'm thinking like if a neighboring property has like an oil leak from like this the underground tank, it could affect.
Yep, that's right. Environmental hazard, yes. So if there's a neighboring property that could be a high environmental hazard, so something you know that has a property that has a potential oil leak, like a gas station, for instance, right? A hazardous waste dumping site, for instance, right? Something that could affect your property, even though it's not on your property or immediately attached to your property, it could be necessary to be disclosed. So in 1995, after this lawsuit was overturned, because they ruled in favor of the developer, after it was overturned, it became an actual part of all contracts. If there's environmental hazard discharge sites nearby, an electrical transformer, substation with 240,000 volts or more, underground gas transmission lines, sanitary landfills facilities, airport safety zones, or even public wastewater treatment facilities, then if it's a new construction, you are required to provide that information and allow the buyer to cancel the contract within 5 business days of the execution. So every time you see off-site conditions, if there's a new construction, brand new from the ground up, it's not a reno, it's brand new, ground up, right? If there's something close by that could affect the transaction, the buyer is entitled to cancel the contract within 5 business days. If it's a resale, meaning it's not brand new, somebody lived there before, it does not include the same 5-day contract cancellation. So if I was able to live there, you're able to live there. That's pretty much how they treat it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but that's how they treat it. Okay? So, brand new constructions, off-site conditions apply. Remember that. Resales, off-site conditions do not apply. All right? Consumer Fraud Act. Guys, if you have any questions, ask, okay? I'm just using this as a review, giving you a bunch of pointers here. That's it. Consumer fraud. I think everybody knows what this is. We already talked in 2 different chapters about misrepresentation, right? So fraud includes deception, fraud, false pretenses, false promise, misrepresentation, knowing, concealment, suppression, and omission of any material fact. So anything you don't disclose that you're aware of is considered fraud. Okay? To be actionable, connecting. To be actionable, the fraud must have resulted in ascertainable loss to the injured party. So somebody lost here. Okay, there must be an injury. And when we say injury, we're not talking about physical. Could be physical as well, but we're talking about any type of injury, monetary injury. And if there's a monetary injury, then there's an action against you. Okay. Any questions so far? Anybody? Yep. Good. I have a question. Why is it not scrolling? Okay. Ah, come on. Work with me. Ruth wrote, disclose, disclose, disclose. Everything. All right. Already talked about affirmative misrepresentation, knowing, and law violation. We talked about that. We didn't talk about penalties in New Jersey, though. So in New Jersey, the fines are up to $10,000 for first offense, up to $20,000 for second offense and subsequent offenses. Not bad, right? One closing, we pay for the fraud. Huh? Depends on what? On the closing? Yeah, so it depends on the closing. How much is going to be the commission? Make sure you're dealing with commissions that pay fraud. All right. You may have to pay also civil penalties, injuries to the other parties, so punitive damages as well. How can you avoid these things? By proving that you did not know that information was false, by making a diligent effort to ascertain the truth, or you relied on information. We already covered this. Somebody told me. Who told you? The seller. Through what? The seller's property condition disclosure statement, for instance. Right? The seller filled out the form that says, this is what I know about the property. Because nobody knows better than the seller. Right? You don't know anything about the property. Okay? The other thing we have is risk management. We already covered this. You got to have errors in omission. We had a whole chapter on risk management. Right? All right. Conduct of business. Pretty much your duties to the public is to, again, promote the interests of your clients. Just repeats. Transaction duties. Right here. You can get penalized for breaching fiduciary duties, failure to meet required standards of care, so not caring for your client at all, conflict of interest, misrepresentation, and so on. If you are found guilty of any of these, you might lose a seller or a buyer. Okay. Next. Right? Not that bad. You might lose your commission or other compensation. Not gonna die. Right? But then there's these two. You might get sued, and you might have this $10,000 or $20,000 we just talked about, right? Now it's costing you big time. Okay. All right. Next thing we have is advertisements. This is briefly talks about federal law. You guys remember this? TILA and Regulation Z and RESPA. You guys remember these things? We only repeated it like 4 times. No? All right. What is TILA? TILA. Truth in Lending Act. What is it? What is it about? Mariah's like, please stop. Please stop. She's holding her head already. Anybody? Somebody. What is TILA? Truth in Lending Act. Really? Not one? Chapter 17. Oh, we got that. Okay, great. Guys, we're done for the night. Chapter 17, we covered.
I lost that. I wasn't here.
You weren't here. Okay, you're pulling the same prank as me. It's about lending credits. Ron regulates the info. What info is made known by sellers? Nope. But it has creditors. There you go. So TILA, or Truth in Lending Act, also known as Regulation Z, is about the true cost of financing. If you guys remember the whole disclosure of APR, right, Mohammed? Mohammed, right? And just stays looking. Anyway. Remember, guys, when you go take the exam, you're not going to have anybody around. Just saying. So it has to do with the cost of the loan. You being fully aware of how much this money that you're borrowing is going to cost you. Right? That's what it is. So we have to be very careful when we advertise if it has any triggering terms. If it has triggering terms, then we need to disclose more stuff. Right? Like qualified buyer, based on credit, based on the purchase of this much or whatever. Right? Including APR. Very, very important. APR. These things must be disclosed if it's one of the triggering terms. APR is annual percentage rate, which is the basic interest plus the costs of carrying the loan over 30 years, as an example. Okay? You guys remember this? All right. You didn't do it yet. I know. But you remember, right, Sebastian? Okay. All right. If it's general terms, if it's something, liberal terms, general terms, they do not require disclosure. Financing available. Right? There's nothing specific about that. Financing available. Negotiable terms, not specific. Loan assumption, specific amount of mortgage available. Okay? Doesn't mean you qualify. Or owner financing. So these are not triggering terms. And do not require certain disclosures like the ones we said right here. Okay? Next page, we're going to talk about rentals. Okay? If this is a rental referral, that's what we call it when we help somebody rent. If it's a rental referral, you still have to have a contract. You still have to have your license. And for you to get paid, anything, right? That contract must include the services to be performed, the date and term of the contract, and how much you're going to charge for the fees, and also a refund policy. Okay, so if you're helping somebody rent an apartment, you have to have a contract that stipulates what you're going to do. Okay? So written contract. I cannot advertise something that does not exist or is not available. Okay? And right here, I got to check advertised property. I must check every day to see if it's still available. Listed property, I need to check every 3 days. Okay, this is important. So, what's the difference between advertised and listed? Why do we have to check every day for advertised property, but every 3 days for a listed property? Because advertised properties like Craigslist, Facebook, newspapers, and whatever, and they reach the public. If the general public sees that a property is available, right, they're going to call thinking that it's available. So we must check every day to see if that property is still available for rentals. Where listed property is listed where? On the MLS. Who has access to the MLS primarily? We do. Brokers, salespeople. So it's like an internal thing. It's between us. Okay? Do you guys understand? So that's what it is. The difference between advertised and listed is whether it's directly to the general public or it's between us. Between us, it's okay. 3 business days, 3 days, we can check in and see if it's still available. Okay? For the general public, if something's not available, then it's considered fraud or misrepresentation, because we're advertising something that doesn't exist. Okay. The agency must not charge more than $25 fee. Before the tenant obtains housing, unless the higher fee is deposited into the agent's escrow and held until completion of the contract, or unless the agency posts a cash security as approved by the commission. Gilbert just wrote, Zillow doesn't follow that. Well, Zillow is not an agent. Okay? Open Door, which is the Zillow company, the realty, just started in January. They are agents, so they cannot do that. But Zillow takes information, what's called IDX, Internet Data Exchange, takes information from the MLSs and dumps into an advertising board called Zillow. Okay? That's why I always tell everybody, Zillow information is not accurate. 99% of the time is not accurate, so do not rely on that information. If it says it's available, check with the listing agent or with your agent. Always check to figure out if it is available or not. Majority of the times, it's already either under contract or sometimes already sold, and it's still showing as active. All right? So make sure you guys always check that information. All right. Listing services. Broker cooperation. Sorry, we're on page 437. Broker cooperation. You guys know that you must cooperate with other brokers. Okay? Unless the seller says, hey, Bruno, I like you and I trust you guys. I don't trust the other people. So keep it in-house. If the seller clearly says that they want us to keep the advertisement in-house, the advertisement of the property in-house, right? And not to work with outsiders, right? Unless they do that, we are required by the Real Estate Commission, and most states have the same law, right? We are required to work with other brokers who want to show the property. Okay? In fact, we must list the property to the MLS within 48 hours of signing the listing agreement. Some agents, they hold on to it until they find a buyer. So it's like, hey, I get the full commission. Right, that's illegal. As soon as you sign the listing agreement, you have 48 hours to put it on the MLS. You found them. Those, see, but those are the loopholes. If you find the buyer within the 48 hours, it's a loophole. But you also have to disclose to your clients that you found the buyer too soon. Would you like to leave it on the market to see if there's more options? Something that realtors don't do. I found the buyer before it was even listed. And I forced my clients to take the first offer that benefits me. Isn't it true? How many times we see properties? I've asked you guys this before in listings. How many times we see properties that are advertised active today, and a few seconds later it's under contract or under attorney review or whatever. Okay. Jose, yep, Zillow not accurate. Saw home advertised on Zillow, called agent, and it had been sold 3 days prior to Zillow advertisement. There you go. That's why the general public needs you guys. Okay? They need you. For you to be able to tell them Zillow is wrong. Work with me because Zillow is wrong. All right. Like I said, if the seller doesn't want you to cooperate, they must sign a document. And that document is called a waiver of broker cooperation form. Don't work with anybody else. Keep it in-house. I understand that it will take longer. I understand that I'll probably get less money. I understand all that because there's no exposure of the property, right? Right? Not enough exposure. But I still want to keep it in-house. Once they sign that, then you can start looking for potential buyers within the agency, right? Without working with other people. All right. You guys remember discrimination, right? You're supposed to discriminate with your license, right? Yes. You're not supposed to. In fact, New Jersey Attorney General, a few years ago, prepared a memorandum. So, like a flyer, they have to present to every single listing. Okay? And that flyer says you cannot discriminate. If the seller, we covered this yesterday as well, if the seller intends to discriminate, right? You must refuse the listing. Guys, there's plenty of fish out there. Not the website, but there's plenty of fish out there. Why are you laughing? How do you know about the site? Nobody else got it, just you. Oldest thing in the world, says the 19-year-old. Anyway, so but there's plenty of fish out there. What that means is if this seller intends to discriminate, don't look at it, oh, I gotta make my commission. No. Go to the next one. Get rid of that seller. It's better than losing your license. Okay? Or getting hefty fines. If you guys remember, right? There's no dollar limit. The judge can charge you with the same thing that they charge the seller, because you are an extension of the seller. Okay? Next page, pricing the property. Quick question, without me going through all this. Quick question. How do we price the property? Who knows? Comps. Yes. We price the property with comps. How do we get the comps? We do the comparative market analysis based on our understanding. And we cannot call the comps, or the CMA, we cannot call it what? An appraisal. Who prepares appraisals? A licensed or certified appraiser. Great. All right. So we price the property. Do we? So who prices it? The seller prices the property. Seller prices the property. What we do, Ron, I'm going to get to that one in a second. You're almost there. That was kind of a correct answer. What we do, so seller prices. We CMA and explain to him that, hey, him or her, 300,000 is not the value. 250 is, or 500 is, right? Whatever it might be. Sometimes they lowball it. I had somebody call here the other day and said, well, how did you come up with that number? I was looking at 400. You're giving me 480. Well, the thing is, you need to understand what's happening to the market. Your property value just boosted $80,000, right? Sometimes you're not aware of where we are now. You understand? So, seller determines the listing price. They're the ones that price the property, but they need our help to understand the market. So we, CMA. Okay? Now, who sets the final price? The buyers. Okay? So, the buyer, or the market as Ron wrote, the buying market, sets the final price. Okay? So listing prices, the what I would like to have is the seller. Then we come in and say, hey, calm your horses, because this is the comps. Your $1 million house is only worth 500, right? Or your $200,000 house is worth 500, right? And with our help, they get the actual price to put on the market. But ultimately, who decides the final price? The buyers. What people are willing to pay. Simple. And we know that from now. People are willing to pay ridiculous amounts of money for properties that are not worth it at all.
Refuses price
Say it again. If the what?
What can we as like this? What can we do if the seller refuses to budge on lowering the price even after?
Stand your ground. Walk away. I prefer to be known as the agent that walked away than the agent that cannot sell. Think about it. Nobody's going to want to work with you because they don't know your story later. They're just going to see, oh, listings with this guy takes forever. He doesn't know what he's doing. So if a seller tells me, no, it's $1 million for this house, and I know the house is worth 500, you got to tell him, hey, listen, I appreciate your time. Unfortunately, I think I will not be able to help you. If you want me to help you in the future, keep my card, give me a call. Do you understand? But be honest with people. Be honest. You'll always get business back. I cannot help you. Unfortunately, at the market that we are in, I don't think your property is worth that value. Simple. Walk away. Got it? Not the answer you were expecting.
I wasn't sure if we were like allowed to walk away. I thought we
Allowed to walk away?
Like, but we were supposed to find.
You're a salesperson. You don't have to sell every time, but you try. But we're not hired yet.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're not allowed to walk away? Of course you are. We had a conversation earlier, right?
Yeah.
You're allowed to walk away. Right?
Yeah. We haven't accepted it yet.
That's it. But even if you do, there are certain ways that you can also walk away. If you think you're not able to do the job, walk away. If you think it's impossible, so it's called feasibility of doing the job, like getting the $1 million, it's impossible in today's market, in that particular location, whatever. Walk away. Right? All right, at the bottom of page 438, we have Megan's Law. Megan's Law is a New Jersey law, well, started in New Jersey, and then almost every state has something similar now. And it's about sex offenders. Okay? What you need to remember, I have here in green, is that you may not provide information about potential sex offenders in the neighborhood. What you can do, right? You have to keep something in writing in all contracts and leases that say that they can find the information on the state police website. Okay? So we cannot disclose, oh, next door there's a sex offender. We cannot do that. In fact, we're not even allowed to research. What we can say, if somebody asks, somebody's concerned about it, is say, look, that registry is in the state police website, www.njsp.org, or your county website. Sometimes even the city website have that information because they're required to register every time they move. Okay? So the question comes down to, and I'm sorry because it is a sensible subject, but the question comes down to, what does a sex offender 2 houses down have to do with the value of the house? And how is that the seller's fault that somebody moved in 2 houses down? It isn't. So that's the bottom line. Like, we're not going to research every single criminal that's right next to your house. Unfortunately, you go crazy if you did that. All right? I'm not defending the cause. I'm completely against sex offenders or any type of crime. Completely against it. Right? But it's not the seller's fault that somebody moved into the neighborhood and is part of that group. You guys understand? Remember, the issue is the property. Okay? You should have done your research as well. Okay? All right, prohibit activities. Common sense. You cannot make any false promises or misrepresentation. Represent more than one party in the same transaction without disclosure. Frequently, you continually making misrepresentations or false promises through agents, brokers, salesperson, advertisement. Failing to account for money, yada, 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 yada. All this stuff we covered in this chapter, covered in previous chapters. You guys can review as a summary of things you cannot do, right? And it's very important that you do, that you go through it, okay? Now, another thing, at the bottom of page 440, you may also be disciplined if you're acting as a broker. Now, this is something that they took serious this year. We had a meeting between the instructors with the real estate commission, mandatory meeting in December. And one of the things that they pointed out, the real estate commission, is that they're coming down heavy on teams. I don't know if you ever heard the whatever team, right? Now there's teams for everything. Sometimes, this is the issue that's happening, sometimes the buyer is okay. They already don't know who the broker is. They should, but they don't know. But a salesperson joining your team thinking that you are the broker when you're just another salesperson, that is wrong. Okay? And this is happening. Some salespeople are part of the whatever team. They don't even know that that's not the broker. Okay? Your team leader is just somebody that's supposed to be helping you. But he's not the one responsible for you. The broker is. Okay, so that is key. Misuse of escrow funds, you guys know. Use of an unlicensed individual to perform acts that require a license, so unlicensed assistant. Discrimination, unauthorized practice of law, pretending to be an attorney, right? Signing net listings. Net listings are illegal. You guys know this. Encouraging or inducing an individual to breach a contract with another broker. This happens a lot as well, right? Actually, we had somebody here. I have no problems in saying this stuff. We had somebody here that in the beginning of his licensing, he did not know. So he goes into an open house that's about to expire, that listing is about to expire a couple days later. And while in the open house, he goes like, hey, if you need any help, I see it's about to expire. If you need any help, I can help you in the future. It's still an active listing with another agent. You're actively telling them, drop this agent as soon as you can. Come with me. That's illegal. All right? If the listing is expired, guys, we're actually the first ones to tell you. It's one of the ways to get inventory to begin with as a newbie, because you're hungry, right? So you're going to present yourself different when you go knock on their door and say, hey, I heard that your listing expired, right? I'm sorry to hear that. I actually have a buyer for a property like yours. Is it okay if I present an offer to you, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So that's not a problem there. We'll encourage you to do that after it expired, not before. You guys got it? A lot of people make mistakes in this. What else? Deceptive advertising, failure to comply with advertising requirements. We did talk about that as well, right? We just went over advertisement requirements. And if the commission deems that any foregoing violations of license laws have occurred, they have the power to suspend you, or even put you on probation, suspend you, or revoke. Additional penalties: deny further issuance of real estate license if you're a repeat offender. And repeat offender is a third time. So if it's the third time, whether the same crime or even another crime, right, you are considered now a repeat offender. Okay, it doesn't have to be 3 times the same crime. It could be different things. All right? Is this good so far, guys, as far as reviews? Is this helpful? Bringing back memories? Yeah? Cool. We have some more tomorrow, right? No, not tomorrow. Give me a break, right? All right. Marlon says I need to check in. Too late. You're pulling a run on me? I need to check in. All right. So, guys, I'm supposed to give you something that Mohammed's been waiting for a very long time, right? I did not forget. If you've logged into your student portal, in the student portal you have Quizlets, you have the quizzes or small tests for each chapter at the end of each chapter, right? And we also have something called a practice exam. Now, it's totally up to you if you want to do this or not. Maybe you want to wait until we complete the whole course, but you've completed so far 90% of the course, some of you. If you have completed 90% of the course, you should be able to take a practice exam and have a feel for where you are. Okay? So, the password for, it's all lowercase, by the way, and it's all together. The password for the practice exam is very simple. Never cheat. All lowercase. Okay? Very creative, I know. I'll tap myself. I actually changed it recently. It used to be my guest. That was the password. And then I changed it to never cheat because somebody apparently was copying all my exams. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
This is a message event.
I might change it soon. I don't know. Is it case sensitive? All lowercase. All lowercase. My handwriting is horrible, so if I don't do like this, you won't understand at all. I'm a lefty. This is a whiteboard on a tablet. Doesn't go well. All right, guys? You have any questions? No questions. All right, so with that being said, we're done for the evening session. We're done until next week. Please take the next few days to study. We're almost done and the exam is coming up, okay? If you've completed 90% of the course or more, you will take the exam as soon as we are done. So that's going to be on the 1st, right? 1st of May, Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, it's live also through Zoom. There'll be a unique link just for the test. And even the test itself has its own unique link, not the same as previous tests. All right? So, enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy your weekend if I don't see you tomorrow in the 10 a.m. class or something. And send me questions on WhatsApp. Okay? See you guys.